Oh, hold on. I got a burp in there somewhere. It won't come out. Oh, well, it comes out when it comes out, I guess.
Oh, God. It's one of those podcasts.
Cool.
So with pollinators and insects.
So you mentioned poison ivy's powers. She can kissy you and poison you somehow. And Derek put a picture in the Discord where she can release like the effects of cannabis. She can just put it out there, I guess.
That's an ability she has now?
She can just
Wow.
You just
I
smell
think
that skunk.
she can put people in trances, and she can get people to hallucinate.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. She puts people in trances a lot.
Yeah.
She takes over Superman like every other week, it feels like.
Oh yeah.
She's always just like, Superman,
Clark.
come here. Yeah. Well, when Clark's written well, he's a bit of a dum-dum in my opinion. When he's at his best is when he's like a lovable, like, oh, I'll give you another chance there, Poison Ivy, to do the right thing. Oh no! Oh, who could have seen this coming? It's like anyone, Clark. Anyone could have seen this coming.
I mean, half the times when Superman fights Batman, it's because he's under the influence of Poison Ivy. So.
All the time. He's under the influence of Poison Ivy constantly. Yeah. And Batman's... That's why Batman carries around the kryptonite, is because... it's because Superman's likely to be under Poison Ivy's influence at any given time.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about the fig wasp and fig relationship?
Sure, yeah. Okay, so in the U.S., we generate a lot of figs. And figs are really native to Mediterranean, Middle Eastern climates. They're more used to dry climates, which is why most of the fig industry in the U.S. is in California. Although there's a huge farm in Pennsylvania, which is really cool. But and a lot of them are have parthenocarpy, which means they can self-pollinate and they don't need insects.
Oh, I was going to ask, can they self-pollinate? Because theoretically, a flower has both of the requirements, as it were.
Right. But the thing is, some of the fig species, like Calamina, I think is how you say it, they have male and female figs, right? And so the males are called capri figs. What happens is a fig wasp, so like each fig species will have its own species of wasps. They're specialized in that way. There's these little male figs called capri figs. The females will enter those through a little spot they commonly called the eye. They'll lay eggs in there and then often die after that. But the males hatch first. The males impregnate the females before they are hatched.
Oh, wow. What a weird system.
What is this, Game of Thrones?
Then the males, you imagine being born pregnant? So.
Oh, my God. I don't even want to be pregnant now, and I'm an adult woman.
I didn't enjoy being pregnant as an adult, let alone having to do it like from the get-go.
Babies having babies. Isn't it a common problem?
Oh, my gosh. What is this, MTV?
Yeah, so then what happens is the males, then after they impregnate the females, they burrow out and create a passageway for the females to leave. When the females leave, they go to find another fig to lay their eggs in.
So that's it. They just hang around figs the whole time. They don't have like a nest or anything.
Well, fig wasps generally.
Specifically the fig wasps.
Yeah, so what happens is when the females hatched and they're pregnant, they're moving around and they're rummaging around in that fig. They're picking up pollen. And then when they go to another fig, they prefer to find male figs, but they can't distinguish male and female from the outside, because there's things for them to eat in the males, but there's not things for them to eat in the female. So if a female wasp mistakenly goes into a female fig, she will essentially pollinate and fertilize and complete that process.
Mm-hmm.
And something that happens that's kind of sad is when the females enter. The process of entering the fig is really rough, and their wings get pulled off in the process.
Aww.
So they can't escape anyway. So typically after they've laid their eggs, they die. And then the figs release this enzyme called phycin, which breaks the wasp down into
So are these the
proteins
figs
and
that we're then eating?
To make Newtons?
so majority of the figs that
Newtons.
we eat are dry harvested figs. So what that means is they fully ripen, they fall off the tree or the bush or whatever, and then they're collected off the ground. Those are fumigated, treated with pesticide and things like that to kind of eliminate any pests that might be on the figs, then washed, then sold. So the reality is, when you're eating like a fig Newton, that crunch is not coming from fig eggs or something like that, like people say. There may be fig wasp proteins or wasp
So I am
chemicals.
eating the fig that at one point had a wasp in it.
That may be the case.
May be the case.
Yes, and the USDA has regulations on this kind of stuff, like how crunchy these things
Right.
can be and how much.
We talked about that in episode 1. Like there's like an acceptable limit of bugness in your food. At
Like
any
peanut
point.
butter, I think has like 3 rat hairs are allowed in a jar of peanut butter. Things like
That's
that.
okay. I feel like everything I cook has 3 cat hairs in it, so
Yes.
So
just
it's
the
all
nature.
protein,
If
right?
you're cooking it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I saw a meme going around a little while ago that was like, you can't eat figs if you're vegan because it's not vegan because there's wasps in there. So would you say that that's true? I mean, it depends. Like I said earlier, it depends on what you're trying to get out of veganism.
Yeah. If you're worried about harming living, life, it wasn't you eating the fig that was responsible for that.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'm assuming it would depend on why that specific person is a vegan.
Yeah. Right. If you're trying to avoid human interaction with the death of insects.
Yeah.
You're in the
It's all really blurry with
figs
veganism.
The ones came up with this on their own, all right? Had nothing to do with me.
A lot of the plants we consume may have things living in them. So vegans aren't vegan. I'll be real with you.
You heard it here first.
Hot take.
Hot take.
Dr. Pedram Daneshgar can be found at the following email.
Don't stop.
If you'd like to give Pat a piece of your mind, you can find him at
Try your best.
Pigs.com.
You're just gonna be on a diet of, vitamin supplements.
Right. That's the future, baby. We never have to eat at all. Just get my daily vitamin of 100% of all my natural intake.
One of my favorite parts of doing the Wolverines panel with you, Ped, was when you were talking about plant regeneration. I think that was GROOT when you covered GROOT. Can you talk to us a little bit about plant regen?
So a lot of plants can regenerate from very little.
Well, you said the grass earlier is like all it takes is like a 1/4 inch of a root system.
Yeah. Well, and so a lot of regeneration has to do with that root system. So when you're trying to like get rid of an invasive species, you're really trying to eliminate that root system. And so when you repeatedly like hack and mow something, you're forcing the plant to take all its stored stuff below ground and put it above ground. And so over time, you're kind of eliminating its stores till it's running out of energy and sugar to like build things with anymore. But a lot of plants have regenerative ability and can regenerate from very small fragments of plant material. So at the end of the Guardians Galaxy movie, when Rocket takes that little fragment, that is 100% true, and that new GROOT is a clone. Yeah, is a clone. So.
Oh, so so would that GROOT have the first GROOT's memories, in your professional opinion? Or is it just a clone? Is it the son of GROOT? Or is it GROOT himself?
Oh.
Is it son of GROOT?
I think it's the son of GROOT.
I think it's the son of GROOT too.
Yeah. Which, by the way, in the Christmas special, like, he had an adult GROOT body, but still, like, the baby face.
It was horrifying.
Yeah.
It was horrifying.
I was like, was this a low budget, like, he's just wearing a Halloween mask from Target? Like, what's going on here? Like,
yeah, they spent all the money on other stuff, and the GROOT suit was the last consideration in that special.
Yeah.
We did do a lot of complaining about that in our Guardians.
We did talk about the GROOT suit.
Yeah,
the GROOT suit was horrifying.
Again, the GROOT suit in Disneyland is on stilts, so they
Yeah,
could have just stilted him.
true. But the other thing that's kind of interesting. Okay, so you're the Guardians of the Galaxy. You can make an army of Groots.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! That's an interesting thought. Isn't I believe I don't think he's the last of his kind. The way that like
No,
some characters are the last of their kind. He's just from somewhere else.
and his original introduction, he's just a tree. Like he looks like a tree, and
When was his first introduction?
it was in
A
one of
long
these
time
like
ago.
yeah. I
Okay,
forget it
I'm
was.
gonna butt in here. It's a little weird because Groot was introduced in like the Silver Age as just a generic monster, and then Groot was later reintroduced as a separate character that was also called Groot later on, and that's the one that says "I am Groot." So there's been multiple
Oh.
Groots.
So
Yeah.
maybe it's like a Benjamin thing. His name is just Groot, and Groot is a popular name
Yeah,
among this tree people, the not Ents of this world.
the original Groot. He came down to Earth and was attacking people, and then they lit him on fire, and that was pretty much the end of it. So
Was that
what
the
is
Silver Age
the
Groot?
enemy of a tree species is
Always fire. It's
Always
always
fire.
fire.
yeah.
Frankenstein, made of fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you covered some of that in our talk.
Yeah.
About-
You know, it's there's this thing that trees can do. They sort of kind of can communicate below ground through roots and fungal networks.
Mhm.
And so I think like that whole kind of premise with like Swamp Thing communicating with the green, I think that's like plausible actually. There's a lot of cool research coming out about how plants can actually communicate with each other and warn each other of danger.
Oh, because I've heard that with when like you mow your lawn, what you're smelling is the grass in distress, trying to warn the other grasses.
Mhm.
We're getting mowed. We're getting mowed.
Yeah, which is
Sometimes they're
interesting
summoning
because-
wasps.
Yes.
Which is-
Oh, right. We talked about yeah. They're like, come, my wasp army, stop this mowing man.
It's interesting though because grass has evolved to be grazed. So
Oh, and why does it care if it's getting mowed?
yeah, that's why I'm kind of like I'm a little.
Maybe
wants
we
you to take a
go
lot.
maybe we go too low. Maybe
Yeah.
Yeah,
our,
that's
you
what
know,
it is.
there's probably a
They-
level.
The clippy clip, like where it starts to taper, and then, but you're going too low. You're getting its ears.
Well,
Well,
do
there's this whole movement happening in New Jersey called no mow lawns,
mhm.
where you essentially get these seed mixes of grasses that grow short, and they're kind of a mix, so you're not just getting
Oh.
some monoculture type thing. They're
Right, yeah,
cool.
'cause I've heard a lot of
they look
about
really nice
monoculture.
too.
Yeah, they look cool. It's like having a
look
little
neat.
meadow in your yard, you know.
Do plants can summon, like we mentioned, wasps. Do they sense when their pollinators are near them? Do they change their behavior at all? As much behavior as a plant can have.
Yeah, a lot of that's. I don't know if they sense them directly, but there are environmental cues to when they should produce flowers and things like that. So it's temperature cues, length of day cues,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, where there's essentially kind of patterns that evolved over time, right? So when the temperature hits a certain amount, then X, Y, and Z pollinators are going to be available. Well, you'll see that's also kind of interesting. Like if you study meadow life, like or like prairies where there's like a large diversity of different plants. If you actually go, you'll see that they all flower at different times so that they can share pollinators, right? So they're not going to be
Smart.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
very
yeah,
smart.
yeah.
It's like niche partitioning, but in
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So it's
They're all waiting in line for their turn to be pollinated.
right.
You
Right.
have April, but come May, you better be out of here. All right, it's my
Yeah.
turn.
Or we're all in April, but I'm gonna flower at 10 a.m. and you're gonna flower at 4 p.m. kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah, I find the whole "I flower at night" thing to be really fascinating. I think maybe just flowering in general, where they close and then they open. Like that's crazy to me that they can do that when they don't have, again, centering my own experience. They don't have muscles or anything. So how are they like doing that?
That's partially like an involved thing related to the pollinators they use. So
Right.
when we were talking about mammals, most of that mammal pollination happens at night, actually. you all might be familiar with like the bat agave tequila story, maybe.
Yep.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I think like 99% of agaves are pollinated by bats, and they do flower at night. And so for something to be bat pollinated, it has to have like it not only has to flower at night, but the flower has to be fairly large because bats have big
Big
heads
boys.
compared to bumblebees or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they're like structurally different to kind of support that. They also the flowers are bigger, like stockier, hardier, a little stronger, so that they can support them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're duller in color typically. So if you've ever seen cactus flowers, they're kind of bland looking, like kind of just off white. I know
Yeah.
there's 100 shades of white, but like, um,
Excuse me, they are ivory colored. How
yeah,
dare you? They're eggshell white.
the agaves in Mexico, I think they're all pollinated by long-nosed bats, and there's a lot of stuff coming out about. There's concern about the tequila industry because of what's going on with the long-nosed bat populations.
I just saw this thing unrelated to plants, sorry. But it was about how Mexico is stopping its production of those beetles that make the red dye because Peru has cornered the market so heavily that there's no point in Mexico trying to compete anymore. And it's like this whole conversation about like appropriation and the loss of a culture. But like this one little beetle grows on this one cactus, and when you smash up that beetle, it turns red, and then you get all your red dyes, and it's all in your M&Ms and your other red jellies. So again, you can't eat anything without a bug involvement.
That beetle is in the Conan video game, and you use it to make dye in the Conan world.
Nice.
It's I do want to be sensitive of your time, Ped. We're happy to chat more, but I'm checking in to see
I have an hour.
how you're doing.
I have another hour, but
Okay, great.
Yeah, we don't have to talk for another hour.
We're just making sure that you have time, and we're not infringing on your Saturday afternoon.
It's a son's basketball game.
No,
you ever watch 7-year-olds play basketball?
No.
Even if I watch 7-year-olds all run after the same ball,
They score baskets by accident. Like, I'm serious.
Yeah.
They just like hurl it up there, and they're like, "Oh, it happened to go in."
It did it. It did the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to my friend's soccer game, and it was 3-year-olds, and they all just it's just
chaos.
mass. It's just a mass of like 8 or so 3-year-olds all just. I mean, it's like a mosh pit. They all just get together and just start kicking. And I'm like, how are these kids having a good time? They're all just kicking each other. And then, inevitably one's like, he kicked me. You're like, yeah, bro, it's soccer. So,
and the one kid that gets it, that like stands away from the crowd.
Yeah.
And then the ball pokes out and he gets to run it down to the goal. Like,
right. Yeah. And his dad acts like he's the next Messi. They're just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Amanda, I think you had a good question about a movie.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the summon the bees, summon the wasps when I'm in distress because a plant can't leave a dangerous situation, which reminded me of that movie a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, if not more, that I think it's called The Happening. I think it was a Shyamalamalan movie. Yeah, that's the one. And we're like, in the end, the answer is it was the plants, and the plants had just like had enough of the people's nonsense, and they were going to kill all the people using their, I guess, summon the bees, but this time make the people want to hurt themselves. Is how plausible, I guess, is my question.
Yeah.
Could the plants turn on us at any moment?
They can become more toxic. Plants can become more unpalatable, right? Like they can do these things over time due to threats, pressure, or whatever it is.
But they couldn't suddenly release a juice that makes me like, I don't know, a pollen that makes me go cray cray.
I doubt it. So a lot of the things that plants do has to be reinforced with better fitness and reproduction later. So it's like if they're doing something that benefits their productivity over time, then maybe. But
could they make me so allergic to the pollen that I want to kill myself?
That's interesting. I mean, one of the weird conversations that's happening with climate change is like some of these plants may become more or less potent.
Because I'm really allergic to, we've talked about it before, it's like a ornamental red sage that people put in their yards. And it blooms in the morning, right after it rains, but it's sunny today, if that makes sense. Because those are the days I notice it. And it just kills me. And I just, I worry that the plants are just going to be like, all right, it's time. Goodbye, people.
Oh, man. You know, my wife is like pretty sensitive to a plant guy who married a woman who can't have plants in the house. It's like,
oh no,
it's tricky. I always joke that she should just live in a cave, but
no, then she'll find like lichen or something in there, and she'll be like, no.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did find it weird. You have no plants in your home.
I have one room with a bunch of what I call microplants, like very small plants.
Little succulents.
Nothing that flowers because it sets my wife off a little bit. She gets itchy eyes and all. And then,
Wow.
you know,
That must hurt your soul.
A little bit. You know, when I was like, a romantic early on, thinking whoever I date is going to get flowers every week, and I'm going to be all great about it. And first time I brought flowers for her, she said thank you, and then she proceeded to take them outside. I was like, okay. So
yeah, I don't really get the flower thing. I'm like, thank you for giving me a thing I'm gonna watch die for 2 weeks. Like I get it, like oh, it looks nice, it looks pretty, and I always appreciate it when my husband does it for me. But if I'm honest, I'd rather you get one of those
give me
bouquets made of jerky, if you've seen those.
Oh wow.
That's what Amanda wants.
I'm more of a potted plant giver, so I like to give potted plants. You know.
We have a potted plant in our bathroom that has thrived because it just wants moisture in the air. So, you take a shower and the plant, we call him Senior Splashy. Because every now and then you got to give him a splash. But mostly he just lives off of that hot shower air.
Yeah.
And he's lived his best life in there. But I got to repot him because he's too big for his little pot now.
Yeah.
I
really,
still
he's
have
Senior
that,
Splashy Junior.
Yeah.
That agave you gave me, Ped.
She's making tiny bottles of tequila.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's alive and it's made babies. It now has 2 little babies I need to take out of that big pot and pot into something else.
Nice.
So
your tequila empire begins.
That was like 2017, I think. So I'm just excited I didn't kill it because I am not good at keeping plants alive. Yeah.
I had a big plant in my room. So my room when I was growing up was jungle themed. So I had like a cheetah bedspread. I think it was leopard bedspread, and like a couple big potted plants. And my posters were all animals. Just 10-year-old things. And I kept that tree alive for a while, but then it definitely died. So I haven't really explored into the land of keeping plants alive since, because as an 11-year-old, I was very upset that I had killed this tree that lived in my yard, my room.
I like a plant I can forget about. I also have that aloe I bought from your nursery that same year. That's still alive, and that has like 7 babies that I need to.
Is it like the snake plant or something that was like, it's just
the
leaf?
Snake plant.
No,
is
it's a big aloe
house plant for people who don't have green thumbs. They're very low maintenance. They don't need too much light. They filter the air. They're like really.
They're pet safe too, I'm pretty sure. Or I know they're cat safe. I don't know if they're dog safe.
Yeah, and the thing that's like when you see them in their natural environment, like you'll see a tropical, subtropical system, they grow all over the place on the ground in darkness because the canopy of the trees is, blocking a lot of that light. So
you can have them anywhere in the house.
Pretty much, yeah. It's funny too because
does that flower?
It does flower.
I've never seen one with a flower before.
Well, there's a lot of plants I don't think of as flowering plants, and then you see one flowered and you're like, what is it? Like the Venus flytrap will flower, and it does that like really, really tall flower so that it doesn't accidentally eat bees.
Most things flower except for, things with needles and ferns, right? Like everything else kind of flowers.
I love a fern. I'm currently killing a fern as we speak.
Yeah.
How does a fern pollinate though? Is it
doesn't also just relying? It relies on water too. Yeah, it relies on water.
So
it doesn't have flowers or anything, right? So ferns are kind of kind of like the OG plants, right? So they kind of
plants of a bygone era.
Yeah, they kind of preceded most flowering plants.
They're like the horseshoe crab.
Yeah, like so back to our dinosaur thing. Like every time you see dinosaurs, you always see these giant ferns and ginkgos and things like that, because those are like fairly ancient. Derek asked comments about carnivorous plants. So carnivory is interesting. It evolved essentially from plants growing in places where they couldn't get the nutrients they need.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to kind of develop other ways to get nutrients.
So they turned savage.
Yes. Now, so what's funny is like everybody just assumes, oh, this plant is going to eat this other thing, but that's not always how it works. Carnivorous plants are good trappers, but they're not always the ones that are directly eating the insect or whatever they trap. There is actually a whole food chain of things that are doing that work for them.
So they might be trapping something for something else to eat. I think we saw that with ants. Like ants would capture stuff so it could eat what actually eats that.
Yeah. Some plants there will be like a direct kind of absorption of nutrients from the insect, but things like pitcher plants, an insect falls in, it essentially drowns and can't climb out, right? And then there is like a whole chain of bacteria that each have a job. So like one thing eats it, decomposes, the next thing eats the waste of that bacteria. And pitcher plants can be like 5th or 6th in line in terms of getting the nutrients they need. So it's kind of an interesting thing.
So the plant's more the environment in which this happens, unless
yes.
they like.
Yeah, the pitcher plant is basically like the pitcher itself is its own little ecosystem that has a whole community growing inside of it. Yeah.
And sometimes a frog's in there.
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. But
we have a lot of beautiful pitcher plants here in New Jersey.
Yes, we do. They occur mostly in bogs and like wetland areas. We have a purple pitcher that's really pretty. And then but there's also like a pitcher that's an epiphyte, which means it grows on other plants and it'll grow up in canopies you'll see in tropical areas. So they're really cool.
And is that bad for the plant it's growing on, or is it just
usually
kind of
not? Yeah, usually not.
So maybe you could explain to me, because no one has adequately explained to me the difference between like there's plants.
It's a trap.
And there's animals. And then there's fungi, which seems to live in between the two. I also feel the same about algae. People are always like, well, technically seaweed's not a plant. And I'm like, okay, then what is it? Because it feels like a plant to me.
It's funny because in my department as the botany teacher, I have to teach about algae. I have to teach about fungi. Yeah, so it's like, it's tricky.
They're not plants, but they're plant-like. They're nearly plants.
So I always ask my students, should fungi be taught in botany or zoology? And like they have to kind of defend that. Because fungi ingest their food like animals do, right? The only difference is their digestion happens outside the body. Animals like ingest food and digest it on the inside. Fungi release chemicals that break food down and then they absorb it. Right. And so it's a little bit different in that way. They don't generate their own food. So they're more like animals in that regard.
Okay. Because I've heard it before that it's the lack of like photosynthesis is like really where they draw the line.
So they're not an autotroph. They can't make their own food. Which is why so many fungi have a relationship with plants. So 90% of the plants on Earth have a fungal best friend. Right? So they couldn't exist.
a little fungi.
Yes, they couldn't exist without them. So
Ped, you're like my fungal best friend.
Aw. Love that. You guys are so symbiotic over there.
Yes, we totally are. So and it's actually like really important too when we think about like just agriculture and the food industry. There is a little to managing fungus in a good way and a bad way. So in the wine industry, they have to worry about fungi that impact fruit production and stuff like that occur on the grapes and flowers themselves. But then they also want fungal relationships happening below ground, which help these plants.
So they can't just wipe out all all fungi because they need some
Right.
of the fungi to still be there.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is the problem with a lot of pesticides too, is you want to save some of those little guys because they're doing a job.
Right.
Well, we are planning to do speaking of, I think you mentioned Last of Us earlier. We are going to do a cordyceps parasitic fungi episode.
Nice.
Do you have any thoughts so far on the show?
Yeah, so I mentioned to you that I had thoughts. So I've already been asked by students like, oh my gosh, this is so real. It seems so real. Can this happen? And I tell them no. Because
do you want to sleep tonight? Then the answer is no, it can't happen.
yeah,
No.
so
Yeah.
all right,
I think
so
we're currently on episode 2, right?
right. So what
Just so
me
we
and
know we're
Kelly
full.
agreed is that it's about time. So for something to be able to invade humans and use them, they have to essentially co-evolve with them, right? And so that will take millions of years of having that relationship and the kind of the positive feedback reinforcing that lifestyle,
Like the
right?
toxoplasmosis in cat owners.
Right.
Which we all have.
Yeah.
All 3 of
Yeah.
us. I'm not Amanda.
Well, I don't currently have a cat, but I've owned cats.
Yeah.
So the toxo may be dormant within me.
This is what scientists text each other about. Ped and I had a text message conversation about cordyceps and humans and the likelihood.
She was like, give it a million years, and I was like, we're not lasting that long.
Yeah, exactly.
Ped was not optimistic for our future as a species.
Well, when you study climate change, it's hard to be optimistic. But
Downer on the cast, man.
If we already had a cordyceps like fungus in, let's say, bats, because poor bats are the current villains.
What is it? White nose syndrome is taking them all out.
But if we had that kind of a fungus in another mammal, then we would have to be concerned about it potentially jumping to humans, right?
Right. And I think most of the like fungal diseases in mammals are kind of the yeast variety.
Then they're respiratory, aren't they? For
Right.
the most part.
Right. So you're not going to get this kind of filamentous thing taking over your whole body situation. Now, the one thing that I do buy that could happen sooner is like kind of that whole LSD thing they were talking about, right? So essentially these fungi release chemicals that could trick our minds into seeing or behaving in certain ways.
That's kind of like The Happening.
Yes.
Yeah, that's more like The Happening.
I can buy that happening, but
The Happening.
Yeah. Yes.
I think I'd rather be LSD'd by plants than filamentous cordyceps.
Well, it's a good way to go,
Eat the
right?
shrooms, and then whatever happens.
Yeah.
That's not my business. What happens after the shrooms?
I do have to commend though the art team on the show.
Amazing.
They really studied their fungi, their slime molds, all of it, and
I love the opening credits.
Yeah,
watching the fungi grow and the slime.
Well, they were like, how do we do the opening of Game of Thrones but with fungi,
yeah.
right? Like
I haven't watched it yet, but there's one episode of Hannibal where someone is using. Sorry, this is gonna get dark. Sorry, people who haven't watched Hannibal, but he's using like dead bodies as a way to grow fungus, basically. And that episode,
he's making
really
some really delicious mushroom, right? And feeding
like the most delicious mushroom because it was grown on people's. It's Hannibal. Like, what are you gonna do? And like that episode gave me the squicks real bad. So now I'm worried that I'm not gonna be able to watch Last of Us because it's gonna be just all.
Just don't watch it at night. I think it's.
Oh well, that's the only time my children are asleep.
Yeah, that's the problem. I always end up watching it at midnight. So it's like, it's
really
zombies.
good.
It's essentially zombies.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can handle zombie movies, I think
I don't like gore. I like psychological thrillers more than I like.
I don't think it's
fungal gore though.
Gory,
like you don't see blood really.
It's just
I don't even like that mushroom that has like the red ooze coming out of it though. I'm like,
Well, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, oh well. I guess I gotta watch it in the daytime with all the lights on.
You should still watch it, Amanda. It's
I
very
will
good.
watch it because I can watch a show and I can dedicate less time to it than it will take me to play the 100-hour game.
They
Although I hear
just
the game is
renewed
really
it
good.
for another season yesterday.
Wow,
Oh, did they?
already.
Well,
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal. You
Yeah.
can't go
Yeah.
wrong.
As long as you
Although
can
you
kill
can't, 'cause
Mandalorians, that's fine.
1984
Yeah.
exists.
So,
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited because we'll be talking about cordyceps and parasitic fungus in the next episode.
Yeah.
Which I've really had to do homework on because I'm not a fungal
Yeah.
specialist.
we
You're not
need
a
to find
fungal.
one. We need to find a
Oh,
mycologist.
how dare you? I am a fungal.
So I'm looking at my notes here. Derek told me to look up or to think of plant questions that I, a layperson, might have. And this is a total departure from what we were just speaking on. Plants sometimes make themselves spicy. What are they? What
that
are they
a
trying
question?
to? Yes. Well, it's a statement. Plants sometimes make themselves spicy,
Right.
or they might make themselves bitter, or they might make themselves whatever, anything but sweet. What are they trying to accomplish when they do that? Because humans were like, "Ooh, delicious anyway." So they were trying not to get eaten. They failed on that part.
Yeah. So all the spicy stuff is all a plant defense. So plants have different ways to defend
So they are trying to
themselves.
stop me from eating them, and they failed.
Yes, but the thing is, like, they didn't evolve these things with humans in mind. They evolved
Right.
these things with herbivores and insects in mind.
So this is the deers or whatever that they're
Yeah.
trying to.
So like when you're eating thyme, you're like, cool, thyme is delicious in my food. But to a rabbit or to a small insect, it's like, holy crap, right? So
Right. Horseradish would be really intense if I was a rabbit.
yeah. Well, so think about like anything with caffeine in it, right?
Yeah.
Like coffee, right? So to us, it's like we can handle it, but can you imagine like the shakes an insect will get if it's got that kind of caffeine? So
Well, then they do that experiment with like spiders, like they gave some caffeine and some LSD. But I don't know if that's true or if that's just
They made
sketch.
wild webs. It
Yeah,
made them
they just go nuts.
crazy
They
webs.
that
lose
is just
all
pure
regulation
hippie
of their-
science. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, let's just do this for fun. Like they're not
If you
trying to
write
solve
down
any
the
problems.
results, it's science. That's the rules.
Yeah.
That's the kind of science I want to do. Just random.
That's the
Well,
one
I
thing
think that's the
Mythbusters
difference
taught me.
between me and Kelly. I think I can see her doing hippie science for the rest of her life and me doing applied science.
Yeah.
I'm trying to solve problems and she's just trying to answer
She just wants to know.
curiosities.
I want to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know the answer to everything, even if no one else cares about it.
Right.
Ped's doing things other people care about.
Yeah. But
So
plants do have lots of ways of defending themselves. So there's mechanical, which is like thorns and prickles and things like that. There's
Stinginess.
yeah. And then there's chemical, which is in different ways. So it could be whether they're eaten or chemicals they release. So some plants will actually release chemicals to harm other plants. So they're defending themselves from other plants. It's called allelopathy. So they release chemicals from their roots that acts like an herbicide. Walnuts are really good at this. They have
So something gets close to a walnut, and the walnut's like, no, this is my patch area.
So you'll see under
Get outta
walnuts,
here.
you'll often see a dead zone under walnut trees. So because they release a chemical called juglon, which is like an herbicide. It kills other things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Very,
it's
very
chemical
cool.
warfare out there.
If
for
you've ever
plants.
held like walnuts, like in the flesh, not the actual nut, and your skin gets kind of dyed. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yeah. Well, as an artist, I use walnut ink. Is the thing
Yeah. Is it a
that
black
I'm
ink?
familiar with. It's like a dark brown.
Yeah. That's the juglon that's dyeing your skin, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good thing you're not
So
a
if I
little
did
plant,
enough
Amanda.
pretty pictures with my ink and then just hung them around, I could kill any plants that were nearby.
Yeah. So they have chemical means, and then they also have just strategies for avoid being eaten. So one strategy is kind of avoidance in time. So in the animal world, when something has a bright color like red or orange, it's usually a warning. Like bees are yellow for a warning.
Oh,
right?
Kelly, it's a
Do it.
appropriatism of no, I'm so close. A something, AP something.
I'm not going to tell you the answer, Amanda. You have to get it.
I'm gonna get it. It's
If you have the answer, please tweet Kelly.
No, I can't remember what it is. What is it? Kelly, tell me.
Aposematism, Amanda.
Oh, I was so close.
I think you had all the syllables, just not in the
Yeah,
right
I
order.
did. I was like Scrabble. I had the word. I could see that it fit on the board, but I couldn't figure out how to spell it. Which
You're
is my
always-
downfall.
You're always
in-
so close. You're
I'm
always
so
so
close.
close.
I'm
And you
always so
just
close. It's my
don't
fall
get
down
it.
in New York Times crosswords as well. I'll know the answer, and then I'll put the I and the E backwards or whatever, and I'm like, what? Why doesn't it fit? So there you go.
Anyway, so animals will use bright colors as warnings, but plants use bright colors as attractants. So when a fruit is ripe, it'll be red. When it's unripe, unpalatable, and not yummy to eat, it'll be green. Right? Does that make sense? So plants want their fruits eaten because the animals do the work of, spreading the seed. So it's same with flowers are colorful as an attractant, right?
And the bees specifically, you said see in UV, and are they seeing patterns on the petals that we're not seeing because it's in UV?
Yes, they will see some patterns that we do not see.
There's
they
a
like blues and yellows.
special that it's on Netflix. I think is it Life or is it Color? It's Color. Okay, yeah, with David Attenborough, and he shows us what plants look like in UV and how the
cool.
bees are seeing them. It's beautiful. Did you see that one, Ped?
Sorry, it's actually Life in Color.
Life in
Life
Color.
in Color.
I had it half. It's awesome. It's
Adding
a really
to queue now.
yeah. Put it in the queue and watch it.
Yeah. So plants will avoid enemies in time. They'll also avoid enemies in space by where they grow. So a lot of those plants I mentioned before that grow on other plants, that's to avoid enemies, right? So they'll grow high up in a tree. A lot of orchids do this.
And
So
those were the epiphytes, right?
Epiphytes, yeah, which means
your
surface
climby
plant. Yeah.
sort of dudes.
Yeah.
Do they whisper for enemies while they turn the lock on their door like I do every night to soothe myself from my invasive thoughts about my house being broken into?
Yeah.
For enemies, I say, and I lock the door.
Two other defenses that are kind of interesting. One is like mimicry. So you'll see some plants will make parts that look like something you don't want to eat. So I think passion flowers do this, where they'll make flowers where the petals kind of look like larvae, and so like it'll deter like other flying insects from coming over there. And then acacias do something called harboring natural enemies, and so they basically recruit an ant army to protect themselves. So they provide the ant with sugar, basically, and little nectaries, and in exchange, the ants defend the plant.
Mm-hmm.
So
those are really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's another type of symbiosis, but does it have a more specific name than just symbiosis? Because sometimes I know they have like
mutualism.
It's a mutualism.
Mutualism. Yeah. Okay, that's
when they both benefit. Right.
Okay. So when you see a plant that's spicy versus a plant that's bitter, are you finding that plants that are spicy are like mostly birds pollinate them, or mostly bugs pollinate them, or is it just I just don't want mammals to eat me? I don't care what comes along after that.
It depends on how and where they're spicy.
Okay.
So if the flower itself is a little bit spicy, that draws beetles typically. Beetles like the spicy, yeasty type things. They also do like some fruity things, like a lot of the stone fruits, which are like single-pitted fruits like cherries and stuff, will draw beetles. But it's mostly meant to be a deterrent.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, so mints and stuff like that, their flowers are very sweet, which is contradictory to their leaves. And so things in the mint family, like and salvias and things like that, those tend to draw like butterflies and moths.
But you don't want to plant mint in your butterfly garden because it will take over your butterfly garden. I heard that's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, mint has some invasive qualities about it. So
what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Have you had chocolate mint?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Is that like a type of mint that tastes like chocolate already?
It tastes like eating a thin mint. Like
it does.
It's
bizarre.
Yeah.
That's cray.
I couldn't really think of a lot of uses for it though. I grew some, and then I would occasionally just eat the leaves, but I don't know. Maybe I can make tea out of it.
I made a mojito with them, so they were.
That's a good idea.
Chocolate mojito, yeah.
Chocolate mojito sounds like a dog. Give me a chocolate mojito. Chocolate mojito.
It sounds like a dog breed. Oh, I
Yeah,
purchased a
he's a-
chocolate mojito.
Oh yes, yes. What kind of breed of dog is that? Oh, it's a chocolate mojito. Yes. At the dog park where Ped refuses to speak to me.
I've never been to a dog park. Is that sad?
Oh.
I've never been
Your
to a dog
poor
park either.
unsocialized dog.
My dog gets plenty of exercise. She does 2 or
but
3 miles a night. But
she's unsocialized.
Yeah.
she
She's
likes
fit,
people.
but has no one to show off to.
Right.
Oh, your dog loves people. She would not get out of my lap when I came over.
Yeah, she likes laps.
She was so cute. He is a tiny, adorable dog. Is your dog on your Instagram?
Yes, occasionally.
Occasionally.
Yes. All right. Let me log in.
Go to Ped's
Get over
Instagram
there.
and check out his dog.
I have a planty Instagram. It's Geeky Gardener. If anybody wants to check that out.
Do check it out. He's got some wonderful photos on there. I'm a fan. It's
geeky gardening.
At Geeky Gardener. We can put it in the show notes. At the end of the show.
Definitely.
Amanda, did you have other questions for Ped?
I think
I can't ask him questions because I kind of one, I've known him for so long. We've already talked a lot about plants.
Right. Yeah. I'm just trying to think if there's anything, because I think we hit most of the things I said, or the things I had written down, which is the spicy thing is really, I think, the only thing that we didn't organically come to.
Okay.
It's like all the good food is made with stuff that was intended for plants to defend themselves. It's
like onions and garlic. And...
I love an onion. My husband does this thing, professional cook, where he cuts half an onion and he cooks half an onion because that's how much he needs for whatever he's cooking. And I'm like, bro, cook off the rest of that onion. Put extra onions in it. There's never enough onions. And he's
How are your kids with onions, though? My kids can't stand onions.
But they're cooked. They're fine.
Oh, okay.
I got a 10-month-old and a 4-year-old. So the 4-year-old subsists only on hot chocolate and peanut butter sandwiches. I spend most of my day being like, maybe we call them no thank you bites, which is where you have to try a new thing and then say no thank you. So most of my day is spent trying to get my 4-year-old to take no thank you bites. You need a little bit of meat, son. Just a little bit of iron in that system. Today we have purchased some protein powder, and we're going to start putting that in the various drinks he drinks.
What kind? Do you use Vega? I think it's a
whatever was at the Costco is the answer of what kind of. My husband used to be real jacked because he was a professional wrestler, and he got so sick of protein powders that we had to ban them from the house for a little while because he just even the smell of them, he was like, ugh, disgusting. I can't take it. So,
hey, you all should talk about
no longer
cricket flour at some point. That's
well, Derek has used cricket flour before, so I've had a cricket flour cookie. I think in one episode they asked, "Have you ever eaten bugs?" And I was like, "Yeah, Derek gave me bugs."
I would like to do a whole episode on food as insects as food sources for humans.
Yeah, it's
because it's going to be important in the next few years.
Sustainability answer, truthfully, because crickets feed on trash and reproduce by the millions. So it's
they smell so bad though.
Yeah,
I used to rear crickets for my master's degree research, and they smell awful. And I worked at a pet store, and they also smell bad there too.
Yes, but with chocolate, they taste delicious. So,
because I've heard before that
they're kind of nutty.
Yes.
Yeah, people complain about the smell of a lizard cage, and what they're actually smelling is the crickets.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've heard that before.
Crickets are gnarly.
Well, what's your favorite plant? Do you have a favorite
that's a good question. I don't have one favorite, but I do like plants that have to work really hard, that have the struggle. So I like plants that grow up in really harsh environments. So I study mangroves, which are woody shrubby trees that grow in salt water, like in Florida.
They're kind of
that's the red mangrove. That's my main. That's the main
that's your boy.
Yeah, that's my boy. research project was on white bark pine. Those are trees those are the highest elevation species in North America. So if you're climbing in the Pacific Northwest, if you're climbing a mountain, the last tree you're going to see on a mountain is a white bark pine. They handle that cold and wind really well. And then
Are they on the East Coast too?
No.
No,
Our
they're
mountains
just West
aren't high
Coast.
enough.
Ha ha
We don't
ha.
have
Really?
mountains on the East Coast. We have
Yeah,
hills.
we don't.
You have hills.
Yeah.
Look at those blue mountains. You mean those
Yeah.
hills over there?
So
Not a mountain.
they're actually it's funny because you go up a mountain in the West Coast. Eventually, there's no more trees. You reach a point called the Timberline, the Justin Timberline, and then after that, it's just like rocky area, right? And we're seeing with climate change that the trees are actually climbing those mountains.
Oh no! See, because our big ski resort is called Timberline on Mount Hood, and it's not true. The trees go for like ages above that lodge.
Right.
I wonder if that's new development or not.
Interesting.
It's a lie.
So,
It's not
but
even
eventually they're
existing.
going to run out of mountain. That's the one thing that we'll have to
Will
worry about.
Mount Everest technically be slightly taller if there's a tree on the very top?
Oh yeah, have to get into how you define
You have to climb
it.
the tree as well.
Yes. Can you imagine that? You climb it and then you're like, oh, one more thing.
You gotta climb this tree.
Get up
Climb
on that
this
tree.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. And I love desert plants. They're also gangsters because it's stressful to live in a desert.
Right.
So
They're all fighting for 4 drops of moisture.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot in botany, what's your favorite plant? And one day I just want to answer with like the most boring, plain plant like ever.
Red
like,
clover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like succulents.
Yeah.
They're nice. They're like an aloe.
Do you have any tips for people trying to keep plants alive in their homes?
Water it.
Yeah.
Because I kill all the plants, or a good starter plant for your house.
I want to start letting plants live in my house. Where do I start?
Yeah, the easiest are snake plants, spider plants. Those are really easy. And
People love their monsteras, I think they're called.
Yeah, they're kind of a pain in the ass. I have a couple. Sorry, watch my language. They're kind of, because they're kind of viney. If you're doing a good job of growing them, they grow big and cumbersome and take a lot of space. So
they're also not pet safe.
Yeah, and you can hack them up though, and create as many GROOT babies as you want with them. If, you know what I mean? So as long as you have a node, so a node is the part of the plant where the leaves and roots or stems emerge from. If you have a node, they'll create roots at each one of those nodes, and so you can. And it's funny because they're expensive, which I'm like,
right.
But why?
Why?
Yeah.
I can just find a friend with a monstera and
because we'll
get a
pay
free
for
plant.
it, I guess.
Yeah.
People in my building have monsteras, and
really?
they take little nodes, and then they're like, oh, I'll give you this little monstera plantling for $10, and I'm like, F off, no thank you.
That's a hustle, yeah. The ones that are actually like valuable, if you get like the variegated ones, like those are the ones that have like, you know, white in them and stuff like that. Those ones actually have some value until like 2 years from now when they're at Home Depot everywhere. But there is this like kind of weird, if you're into like nursery plants and stuff, there is like this trend. Every year there's some hot plant, and then 3 years later it's Home Depot. It's at Home Depot. So like there's this crazy market that happens for a year, then people figure out how to propagate them, and then
interesting.
Yeah.
They become they get too good at growing them, and now they've lost their value.
Right. But there is like there's shops around here that have collectible plants, and as a comic book collector, it hurts me inside. But yeah.
You could have Pokemon, but just for plants.
Yeah, Pokemon plants. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a go-to East Coast plant that if you're trying to make your yard more pollinator friendly, you should plant?
That might be region specific.
Yeah, that's very.
That's why I said East Coast, because I was like, "What do you guys plant?" Versus me, I'm going to plant something totally different.
How about here in New Jersey?
You know, it's like it's kind of silly, but like there's a lot of value to an oak tree.
Oh yeah, we've got so in Oregon, you're not allowed to cut down an oak tree unless you have permission from the city. Like,
in Portland?
flat rate. I think it's I'm in Multnomah, Washington County takes over the Portland area. And yeah, we've got a neighbor who's been trying to cut down an oak tree for years. And the city keeps telling him, no, it's a benefit to the neighborhood. You're not allowed to cut it down. They have some word for it.
Well,
It's like
townships in Jersey do have
asset.
like they have like arbor societies and tree
well,
groups and stuff like that.
Tree law in Oregon is crazy. Don't mess with tree law.
In New Jersey, in Warren Township, where a friend of mine lives, if he cuts a tree down in his yard, he has to plant another one to replace it.
Yeah, that's how it is here too. You have to, if you buy a property with 5 trees on it, you have to keep 5 trees on it for the rest of the time you own that property.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Well, if you like having wildlife near your house, like if you want to see birds,
and
trees are the way to go. So, but there's
I've
so much
noticed a
value
lot of
to an oak
hummingbirds
tree.
this year. There's been a ton of hummingbirds.
We only have one species of hummingbird here in New Jersey, the ruby throat, which is beautiful. But I'm always so jealous of places who get more than one species.
We have a lot. I don't know how many, but I see multiple kinds, and it's very possible also that I'm seeing the same kind of hummingbird with a
male
dimorphism.
and a female. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and so I think I'm seeing more kinds than I really am.
Amanda, you said sexual dimorphism. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, my character is slipping on the path.
Amanda's a secret scientist. We just pretend.
These hummingbird feeders that they're using, like they're basically putting like the equivalent of soda inside of them. It's just like
yeah.
And so like all these hummingbirds are feeding on these things, but they're getting no nutritional value.
It's awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's hurting their kidneys because they shouldn't have that dye.
Right.
That's a problem.
Oh yeah.
Is that a bug-based dye?
It could be.
There are 7 hummingbird species in Oregon, according to the Arbor Society. So there you go. I have 7 little guys. They might not all be here. They might be spread across the whole thing. Well, we try to get the it's like sold as like, this is healthy for hummingbirds, this is good for them. I don't know if it's true, but that's what they sell it to me as. They claim to be good for the hummingbirds. And it's like clear, so it has no dye in it at least. At least I'm not giving them dye.
Yeah. Yeah, honorary. Derek's calling them honorary bugs. They kind of are. Yeah.
Wasn't there like a moth that looks just like a hummingbird?
The hummingbird hawk moth.
That's the one. That's the guy.
They're very, very cool looking. Yeah, we'll do an episode on those. So I guess we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ped, for coming on the pod here. We appreciate it. We'd love to have you back for future episodes.
For sure.
Can you tell the people where to find you on the internet?
So my Twitter handle is PedPatrick. My Instagram is Geeky Gardener. And I wanted to shout out a new coming YouTube channel that me and Kelly are launching called Nerdy Naturalists, where we kind of fact check everything that's geeky and look for those videos coming soon.
Thank you.
Bugs Need Heroes is created by Derek Conrad and Kelly Zimmerman, hosted by Amanda Niday and Kelly Zimmerman. Bugs Need Heroes is produced and edited by Derek Conrad. Our music is Ladybug Castle by Roll Music. All character art by Amanda Niday. Got a bug question? Email us at bugsneedheroes@gmail.com. Check us out on bugsneedheroes.com for the visual companion to our episodes with the artwork of the bug-related heroes. We also have an Instagram, Twitter, and subreddit under the Bugs Need Heroes name. Thanks for coming by. Brute suit riot! Riot!